Good afternoon to my viewers in the Western Hemisphere. Good evening to my viewers in Europe, and good morning to my viewers in the Pacific Rim area. Welcome, everybody, to the Angry Astronaut. I feel like I've been talking a lot about this whole Ukrainian thing. It has been a topic that's been consuming a lot of people's attention, and rightly so. This has been a catastrophic event in many respects. All of us are feeling it to one degree or another. I mean, my son, who isn't exactly a wealthy kid or anything, he feels it at the gas pump. Just filling up his car is a difficult task these days, and he has it easier than just about anybody as far as this crisis is concerned. It's been impacting a lot of people in a lot of ways, and the fact of the matter is, you can't slam a country like Russia with the kind of sanctions that we've been hitting them with without impacting the world economy. It just doesn't happen that way. And especially considering that not all the nations in the world are doing it. You've got China and India who are trying to stay on the fence, and they represent, well over 2 billion people. And then you have, Europe imposing really strict sanctions, and the United States imposing really strict sanctions, supposedly. And then all of a sudden, but, as far as energy is concerned, and oil and natural gas, well, maybe not. As Biden said, it's in nobody's strategic interest. Okay, so is it in Ukraine's strategic interest to have been invaded? I mean, come on. How 100% behind Ukraine are we really? And, at the same time, I understand, given how extreme things are happening right now, how extreme of an impact it has on everybody and the consequences all of this means to the world, to everybody on the planet. And really, the sanctions that are being undertaken right now are the sorts of sanctions that you usually put on a country when you've gone to war with them. I mean, these sanctions could easily be interpreted as an act of war. And so if you're taking, action this extreme, then it creates extreme situations. Chris, thank you so much. I appreciate the 10 quid. And by the way, guys, a quick reminder, I am currently raising money to go to Colorado. It's not an expensive undertaking because obviously I have family there. Supax, thank you so much for joining us, by the way. Thanks, brother, for coming by. Thanks. I appreciate, the support from New Zealand. Thank you so much. Deeply appreciate that. The reason I'm going to Colorado, I've got family there, so it's not going to be that expensive, plane ticket, car rental, that sort of thing. That's about it. But I'm going there in order to take a tour of Sierra Space. Sierra Space and their manufacturing facilities have given me an invitation. This is the best time for me to do it, and I am going to Colorado in about 2 weeks. So in about 2 weeks' time, I'm going to be going out to take a tour of their facilities where they are manufacturing Dream Chaser. And apparently, at least from what they're telling me, they're going to be giving me filming opportunities on some of their manufacturing floors, some showing me some of the components, that sort of thing. So it's going to be a very exciting trip that's going to bring some really exciting content to this channel. Lots of ways to support the channel, obviously. It's all in the description, super chat, so you can hit that join button. However you want to do it, it'd be deeply appreciated. And like I say, I don't need a lot to support this. And one way or another, I'm going anyway. I've got to go. I can't pass up this opportunity to tour Sierra Space. Simple as that. I really want to see what they're doing up close and personal. And I think that it's a very, very exciting thing. And by the way, I'm also going to see whether or not I can get some access to ULA's facilities in Colorado as well. Thank you so much, Ryan, for the support. Wow, thank you. I really do appreciate it. And here's another special bonus, by the way, today, guys. Two special announcements. We've got a 1-2 punch coming today, this content, and then immediately after my live stream, I'll be releasing a recorded video about Elon Musk's decision to not block Russian news sources on Starlink, on his internet service through Starlink, his decision to not block any Russian information services, which puts him at odds with most of the world, or at least most of the Western world has blocked RT and Sputnik and all that, and he's not going to do that. And this video is about that particular topic. It is highly controversial, but nevertheless, I think it's stuff that had to be said. So, just to give you a little spoiler, I am in support of what Elon is doing. I think he's making the right decision. But to move on, what's going on with Roscosmos and how significant, how big of an impact is this really having? This is how I'm feeling about it right now. It's easy to write off Roscosmos and say, okay, there has-beens and they're really not, they really haven't accomplished a whole lot recently, and their technology's behind the times, and we don't really need them anymore, that sort of thing. Oh, hello, Marina, by the way. I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for paying me a visit. Thank you. Really do appreciate that. It's a lot of people are saying that Roscosmos is kind of, just a non-player, that really, the contributions they're making is insignificant at this point, and we really don't need to pay any attention to them. But I feel this sense of sadness. I feel this sense of just regret that what's happening with Roscosmos is happening right now, that all of this is happening because of Vladimir Putin's decision to invade Ukraine. Because of this decision, almost certainly Roscosmos is going to go into a death spiral. We'll put it that way. It's almost certainly going to fail because some of their most important customers were European customers, to a smaller degree the United States, but to a massive degree Europe. And that's over with. OneWeb, and also, dear God, the European mission to Mars, the ExoMars probe, that's done. That's dead. A minimum of 2 years before the ExoMars probe will go to the red planet now. Another 2 years, which was unnecessary. This didn't have to happen. And by the way, this wasn't as a result of the European sanctions. The Europeans didn't say, hey, we're not doing the ExoMars probe. This was Roscosmos's decision. Roscosmos is trying to hit back at the West by canceling all of their arrangements with the ESA, canceling OneWeb's contract, canceling all of this stuff. And even though that's going to have a temporary impact, a temporary negative impact on Europe, it is going to have a fatal impact on Roscosmos. And we are talking about the organization that put the first man-made object into space, the organization that put the first human being into space, the organization that put the first woman into space. These are not small things. These are not insignificant things. Their successes as far as their space stations, their history of space stations, not just Mir, but their various series of Salyut stations. The United States wasn't doing any of that at that time. And, it's, by the way, we've got almost 300 people watching. Thanks so much for tuning in. Please like, please subscribe, and thank you very much for joining me. So with all of their successes. In fact, one of my earliest memories of something that I found to be such a spectacular sight was when Salyut 6 went flying over my high school. I was taken up there by my astronomy teacher. I was just a kid, obviously at the time. And there went Salyut 6, bright as anything. It was so bright. And it just slowly tracked its way across the sky. I had never seen anything like that before in my life. I found it to be amazing. All of these astonishing things that the Russians have accomplished in space, and it is almost done. It's almost through, because even if the Russian government decides to support Roscosmos and try to prop them up financially, you're fooling yourself if you think, or they're fooling themselves if they think that they're going to be able to prop up Roscosmos when they're trying to prop up their entire economy, their entire society. There's no way that Roscosmos is going to survive all of this. And I find this to be tragic. I find it to be very tragic. I honestly think we're losing a lot more than a lot of people are thinking. Now, just some quick comments from my Discord supporters. By the way, if you become a Patreon supporter or just hit that join button, then you too can join on to Discord and be part of this group of this community here. Tunster says, although NASA will always be on this edge, we mustn't forget how neglectful the U.S. government is. Very true. We were neglectful, weren't we? Wow. Thank you very much for the 10 euros. Appreciate that. And greetings back to the Netherlands, by the way. Lovely country that you folks have. I only spent a few hours in your airport once, but every person I encountered there was fantastic. Since they say Cygnus can be adapted to Atlas, could it also be adapted to a Falcon 9? Perhaps. One thing to keep in mind is that the Atlas has a much, much bigger fairing than the Falcon 9 does. So that is a drawback as far as that's concerned. Roscosmos has become a legacy once this conflict hits home. Carl Thamel says ExoMars will need to be adapted to another launcher like the Ariane. Very true. Unfortunately, you can't do that overnight. So this is almost certainly dead by this for this particular time frame. It's very sad indeed. And freedom is what let's see here. I'm looking at some of the other comments that we have. Boy, a lot of comments came through here. Tons of them. Elon clearly cutting through the noise in terms of politics. I agree with that. Is there a charter agreement that modules can be bought to keep the station together, or can any party take their ball and just go home? I think the intent is to keep the ISS going, but at the same time, given how extreme these sanctions have been, I wouldn't put anything past the Russians right now. Definitely. Let's have a look here. Russia attacked the internet. That's true. The U.S. via the internet a number of months ago, they actually attack the internet on a regular basis. There's no question as far as that's concerned. So a number of comments coming. ExoMars adaptation 2 to 4 years maybe, says Carl Thamel. Yeah, maybe so. That's sad. That's really sad. That's tragic for the future of our exploration of the red planet. The latest probe headed to Mars, designed by the ESA, with a lot of very unique equipment on it, and it is just we're just in serious trouble. How do you adjust a probe that was specifically designed to go on a Russian rocket, suddenly to go on an Ariane? It requires lots and lots of modifications, obviously. And yeah, it's the subject of Russian cyber attacks came up. There are certainly lots and lots of them, which what I found to be really astonishing, though, is the fact that the Russians have not undertaken tremendous cyber attacks against Ukraine. I mean, they could have shut down a huge portion of Ukraine's social media, totally disrupted all of these videos that we're getting out of Ukraine right now. There are tons of things that they could disrupt. It's been theorized that the Russians haven't done that because they're using it themselves. Kind of like the whole Independence Day thing, where they're using our own satellites against us. I think that they're using a lot of Ukraine's internet communications and a lot of their internet networks in order to gain intelligence about what's happening on the ground. Every film, every live video that we get, every tweet, every TikTok, everything that comes out of Ukraine can theoretically be turned into useful intelligence for the Russians. And that's something that they may want to take advantage of. And that may be one reason why they're not enthusiastic about taking down the Ukrainian internet network. I think we're ready for the next USSF launch that's been pushed back again. Yeah, one thing I want to mention. Oh, thank you, Johnny Spacer. Really do appreciate it. There's a chance that Putin could be ousted. Dear God, I hope that happens. I hope that man gets overthrown. That would serve a lot of very good purposes. One thing I wanted to mention, since we mentioned the Space Force and all that, is ULA just carried out a successful launch of an Atlas V. Everything went off flawlessly, even though they had no technical support for their engines. Yes, there is a bounty, by the way, on Putin at the moment that was placed by a businessman. So it's $1 million, though. Keep in mind that Osama bin Laden had $25 million on his head. So sometimes those sorts of incentives don't necessarily work out. But that's one thing that, once again, to get back to the ULA thing, congratulations and props to ULA for carrying out a successful and flawless launch of an Atlas V utilizing Russian engines without any Russian support. It demonstrates that they thoroughly understand the technology that they're using, that they planned for this eventuality, they planned for this situation, and they've adapted to it extremely well. But again, to get back onto the topic, so much is being lost, in my opinion, as a result of this. There are so many things that Russia and Europe have done in concert with one another. So many expeditions, so many journeys to other planets. To Halley's Comet, for example, way back in the 1980s, that was a combined Soviet ESA endeavor. And at a time when we got nothing, by the way. Marina said they need to take down our internet in the Ukraine. I'm sorry, I'm trying to see that. I apologize, but the thing is that they follow their Kremlin propaganda, right? That is one thing that I've been hearing a lot of, is the fact that that Russia, the average Russian person, is more inclined to listen to the propaganda that's handed to them by RT and Sputnik than they are to listen to any Western sources of information. But still, my hope would be that as the casualties begin to pile up, as economic conditions get worse and worse in Russia, more and more Russian people might ask questions. They might say, what's happening here? What's taking place? Why are we suffering so much? What's the reason for this? And if they were getting communication through Twitter and through Facebook from the West, they might start listening a little bit more if people DM them more through those sources. But now Facebook and Twitter are blocked, and they didn't block it first. The West blocked RT and Sputnik first. So that was an unfortunate situation that, honestly, I do believe that that's one of the reasons why Elon did what he did, why he wouldn't block it. He wants Starlink to provide that avenue of communication between Russia and the West, between Russia and everybody else. As time goes on, And as more and more body bags come back, sadly, as their economy continues to suffer, I think more and more people are going to be asking questions, and they're going to be starving for information. They're going to want that information. They need a source of information. And unfortunately, they've lost some of it. And they lost it when maybe they didn't have to. Maybe if we didn't block RT and Sputnik, the Russians would have allowed Facebook and Twitter to continue. Hard to say, because Twitter's very popular in Russia, by the way. They're not happy that Twitter's down. They just interviewed a lot of kids who use Twitter, and they weren't saying any negative things about Putin. They were just talking about how angry they are that Twitter's gone. So, it's hard to say what the long-term consequences might be, but I would say it's better to have communication than to not have it. Thank you so much, Edward. By the way, what a huge, what a generous amount of support. Dear Lord, thank you so much. And yes, I'm going to keep that content coming. And once again, I've got another video coming out immediately after this live stream. It is a 1-2 punch today, and my second video is going to be controversial. I'm going to be making an argument as to why Elon blocked RT or didn't block RT and Sputnik, why he shouldn't have, and why it's best that we get more information from Ukraine rather than less, even if that information is, twisted and full of falsehoods and distortion. It's better that we see more information than not. And so, in any event, you'll be getting that here pretty soon. Maybe the cyber threat is coming from the US, UK, and Europe. We depend on the internet for everything. Very true. Very true indeed. A research reactor. Let's see. Hold on. Darth Russ just made a comment. Russia continues to show a substantial amount of restraint. Not a lot of their cyber has been deployed, maybe because they want to keep it for later. The Russian Air Force has been absent, maybe because they're worried about encouraging NATO. The vast bulk of their force is still in Russia and Belarus, maybe because they're hoping for a quick surrender. That's a good sign if it means that they have some kind of thinking about a Russian-Ukraine after the fighting. And that's very true. Another thing that occurred to me was the fact that a lot of Russia's Air Force depends on their highly sophisticated anti-aircraft missile systems, the S-400 and S-500, and they have range of hundreds and hundreds of kilometers. Those anti-aircraft batteries are capable of shooting down Ukrainian aircraft while they're still way in the Ukraine, and these batteries could be way in Russia. But what's the consequences of that? Obviously, if you shoot down Russian or Ukrainian planes, they are going to crash along with all of their ordnance and cause a lot of civilian casualties. Obviously, the Russians haven't been that concerned about civilian casualties, but in my opinion, at least some of the Russian military may be a bit concerned about huge numbers of civilian casualties. If we start talking about thousands and thousands of Ukrainian civilian dead instead of hundreds, that could prompt the West into some sort of reaction. They may be afraid of that. If they are, that's a good sign. That's a good sign. Maybe they may be a little bit hesitant. We'll see as far as that's concerned. All right, let's see here. Let the grandpas that canceled the Twitter don't use it. Firing rockets at a physics institute in the city of Kharkiv. That's true. It's a subcritical neutron production target. This is clarifying the whole Kharkiv reactor, an electron linear accelerator, a cold neutron source, experimental neutron channels for nuclear physics research. Not good if that gets hit. Yeah, very true. So far, the evidence I've seen is that anything that's been hitting that particular reactor have been hitting administrative buildings, but still, missiles can go off target. It's very easy for missiles to go off target. Anybody has had that happen. Missiles that we shot went off target in Afghanistan and in Iraq, hit all kinds of things that we didn't intend for them to hit, and the consequences were tremendous. The consequences would be really tremendous if they were to hit some sort of reactor. So yeah, not a good thing at all. What's happening? It just, none of this is good. All of this is terrifying, and something that we have to very much do something about. A Kauai astronaut says, I am upset about this war. I'm glad SpaceX is there to save us. Yes. And as I said before, as I'm going to say in this video I have coming out, I'm also glad that SpaceX is taking the stand that they are. They're taking the stand of, Elon's taking the stand of, I'm not going to block RT and Sputnik. I think that he's keeping a level head and saying, let's try to calm things down. Let's try to talk. Let's try to negotiate and to, to hold out the olive branch. I won't block your news. I mean, that's something, right? When everybody else is blocking Russian news sources, for him not to do that, I think is a substantial move. And who knows, it might have a positive reaction in the future. Kind of hard to say, but I do agree with his decision to do so. I really don't think very many people are going to believe what RT has to say about this war anyway. So, but back to the subject at hand, there are a lot of other consequences obviously associated with this. Russian cosmonauts, for example, have a tremendous amount of experience, a huge amount of experience in space. Russian cosmonauts hold all kinds of endurance records. They have tremendous amounts of data as to what long-term periods of time, sustained periods of time in microgravity does to the human body. The information they have about that is, immense. It's not easy to do an EVA. It's not easy to work in microgravity. They have a tremendous amount of experience doing that as well. By the way, thank you so much. I think it's Mr. Farmer. We are losing reliable Russian rockets. Thankfully, their tanks aren't. Yes, Dimitri Rogozian is an inflammatory jerk. He is indeed. Thank you so much for your support. Really do appreciate that. And yeah, he's the worst leader that Roscosmos could possibly have. The guy, I don't think I mean, really, think about it for a moment. Somebody who's in charge of a space agency should always have the philosophy that our governments are enemies. We scientists are not. That's what they should say. That's what they should believe. That's what we should always believe. Roscosmos blogged me on Twitter for calling his new banner out. Is that interesting? Wow. Unreal. I didn't even know that. Crazy. So yeah, Roscosmos is being very reactionary right now, very inflammatory. All they're doing is contributing to this problem at the moment. And once again, why? Why? Why can't, I mean, you have an opportunity here to act as an instrument for peace, an instrument for understanding. And instead, all you're going to do is fan the damn flames. And it really annoys me. Glenn, thank you so much. Really do appreciate it. And yes, I'll keep that content coming. Thank you for your support. And by the way, this support, everything I'm getting today is going towards me going to Colorado. I'm going to be touring Sierra Space, going to be touring their manufacturing facilities, having a look at their Dream Chaser facilities, a lot of the components involved in that. So thanks so much for that. And that's happening soon, by the way. I'll be leaving for Colorado in just a couple of weeks. So really do appreciate everybody's support in that regard. You can also support me. It's all in the description, Patreon, or hit that join button. And also a private conversation between myself and my Patreon / Discord supporters and those who hit that join button. Everybody involved in that, I will be having a private video for you guys tomorrow, and I will announce the time as far as that's concerned. Let's see. Russia found in space any moon landing, Mercury research, comet landing. Boy, I'm sorry, I didn't catch the content of that particular comment, but in any event, it's hard for me to keep up with these things sometimes. I apologize, especially if I'm also checking out my Discord folks at the same time. Um, and yeah, Russia's Putin has ruined space. A comment that was just made there. I think that's an easy way to sum it up. It really has. What Putin has decided to do, this, ill advised decision to invade a sovereign nation, supposedly for the security of their country, to have a well established buffer zone between them and NATO, whatever their damn justifications are, whatever, they had in mind when they did this, it has created a disaster for space exploration. The loss of ExoMars alone is disastrous. That is tragic in itself. It breaks my heart, frankly. I was so looking forward to that probe. It was had so much unique equipment on it. It had so many interesting objectives associated with it. And now at least 2 years, maybe four, before we can adapt it to go on a different rocket. Should may take advantage. Will be desperate to. Let's see. Russia is not. Oh, okay. The reference to communism and such. Okay. So in any event, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up at this point. I do have another video to release immediately, a recorded video. Once again, controversial stuff that I'm about to release, guys, but that is the way I am. And this is going to be talking about why Elon Musk did not follow the example of much of the West and block Russian news sources. I'm going to be, putting it all out there because that's what I do. So get ready for it. And it'll be released here within the next few minutes. But until Roscosmos realizes just how negative of an impact they're having on the future of space exploration, until they realize that the world is so much better off with their experience, with their legacy, than we are without it, just for the sake of the silly invasion, the ambitious and petty invasion of another sovereign country, until they realize that none of this is worth it, I urge all of you to stay angry about space.